Chapter 25. Bonding Rituals. So what brought you to Hope? I figured that when we left the town, their moods would have been greatly improved, especially since they got their way and they were joining me on the rescue mission. I really didn't expect them, Nate especially, to have sunken back into their own personal despair. Hope was fading from sight as we started to venture deep into the looming cityscape. Normally I enjoyed some silence, but this was getting to be too much. Well, we needed to restock our supplies, and it's the closest trading town to us, and plus the most hospitable to us foxes. It was Marcus who did most of the talking. The few times I tried to converse with Nate, he just stammered a bit and pretended that something else caught his attention. Occasionally I looked towards him and saw that he was either looking at me or Onion. But as soon as he realized I was looking, he cast his attention elsewhere. If we were going to travel together, we really needed to build some trust between us. This is why I didn't want them coming in the first place. Apparently I'm the only one in this entire world who doesn't understand. But what's with the dislike of foxes? Nate was right. You really don't see us like that, do you? Well, it's really hard to tell, honestly. Most of us foxes don't understand it ourselves. It probably has something to do with back in the prehistoric days, when we were nothing more than primal savages. Some foxes must have done something to segregate themselves from the other species, and that stuck with them, eventually blending into this stereotype that's used to define us. It's caused me and my brother nothing but pain over the years. That's horrible. How can an entire civilized society treat a single species like that due to some potentially over-exaggerated event that happened thousands of years ago? Civility is just a ruse. Deep down, this world is just cruel. It was Nate who spoke this time. I looked towards him, but he had already cast his eyes to the ground, as if he had never said anything at all. I wasn't feeling sorry for him, but rather I felt like I wanted to comfort him, to tell him that this world has goodness deep within it. Unfortunately, from everything that I've seen, I often doubt that that was true. If even a place like Hope, a town that was built upon harmony, can still see these brothers as nothing more than foxes, despite how wrong they were, was there truly anything good left in the world? I want to thank you, Olivia. I doubt that anyone else would have wanted to rescue someone they didn't know, especially if it meant helping a couple of foxes. Yes, there's still good left in this world. Mayor Swift, these brothers, Bo and his family, Chief Laszlo and myself. Our numbers may be few, but as long as there's still a glimmer of hope for this world, I think things can change. We just need to show them the right path. Well, there's no way I could sit back when someone's in trouble. I checked my map. 28.12%. We're not even halfway there. But at least we're still heading in the right direction. Quiet fell upon us once again as I took a look around. We were heading northeast, through what appeared to be a residential district. But directly north I could see enormous buildings looking down upon the city as they climbed into what looked like a giant hill. The structures around must have only been 5 or 10 stories tall. But the ones in the city proper to the north, some of them looked as if they had hundreds of floors. I was so preoccupied with looking at my surroundings that I nearly tripped over Onion, who at some point moved in front of me. Miss, he keeps trying to touch me. What? Who? My eyes moved to Nate, who had something in his paws. When he noticed I was watching, he quickly shoved it back into his pocket. Nate, what are you doing? Marcus must have noticed as well. Nothing. We all stopped and just looked at him. He started to twitch, probably feeling a little discomfort from all the sudden glares in his direction. Okay, look. I have some bad thoughts going through my head, and I needed a distraction. Your robot, he's fascinating. Well, if you wanted to know about him, you should have asked. I didn't think... What? You thought that since you're a fox, I would tell you no? Sure, I don't want anyone to be messing around with Onion's tech, and I'm sure he wouldn't appreciate it either, but I'm open to telling you all about him. You only need to ask. I'm sorry. Didn't I overhear you say you built him? Don't be sorry. And yes, I did. I built him from scratch, out of whatever scraps I could get my paws on in the burrow. The mention of the burrow caused him to shrink back a little. Marcus simply shook his head a little at me. I don't know why he seems so afraid whenever I mention the burrow. I need to remember and refrain from mentioning it, at least until we get to know each other better. So, you built him from junk? Marcus broke the tension that was building between Nate and myself. Yeah, I was about 13 when I built him. My mother had recently died. I had no friends or relatives, and no one in the... I caught myself. The thoughts of my mother almost made me slip. Where I lived had ever shown kindness to me, and if they did, I could tell it was feigned. There were a few rabbits where I lived, and the rodent population, most of them tended to look down on us, as if we were lesser beings. That thought made me wonder if the same thing had happened to Nate and Marcus. Did they get treated badly just because of their species? If so, it must have been much worse than what I had experienced. I hated my burrow, but Nate acts as if he feared his. We're sorry. Nate and I lost our mother at an early age as well. We know too well what that's like. Well, looks like we have something in common after all. I wasn't sure if it was the right thing to say at a time like this. My social skills are really bad. I watched for a reaction, and all I saw was a building sorrow between them, although it appeared more heavily with Marcus. Anyways, back to Onion. He's probably the only friend I had growing up. Before my placement test, which was a load of crap if I do say so myself, I was always tinkering and fixing things. My mother would often be able to get me some random bits of scrap or requisition broken electronics from being recycled, and that's where I developed my love for technology. Most of the rabbits, what few there were, brought me their broken things and I fixed them. After a while, even some of the rodent population came to me instead of going to the actual technician. He was always too busy to help. I never did find out what that fucking rat was doing with all that time. But when he died, I did everything I could to prove to the rest of the population that I should take over for him. Miss, you're getting a bit off subject, if you don't mind me saying. Oh yeah, sorry. So after my mother died, I did whatever I could to find scrap, salvaging broken components from items I was fixing, trading with other residents, and even on the rare occasion, stealing something. I wasn't proud of myself for doing it, but to be fair, it was always something that was never used, and almost always went unmissed. Once I had everything I needed, I built this handsome devil. He kinda reminds me of an iBot. Nate seemed to have snapped out of his mood and kept trying to get closer, each step causing Onion to get closer to me, using my body as a shield between the two. iBot? What's that? Some type of surveillance robot that was used during the war. As the name suggests, they have a camera that can broadcast the locations of enemies to whoever was using it. Some of them even had a two-way communications that can be used to send messages. Well, he was my own design. Although the whole reason he looks like a, onion, was due to the fact that when I was building his shell, all I could find were these expansion rings designed for pipe systems. I welded them together to create the inner shell and simply attached whatever curved metal I could find. He isn't exactly combat-worthy, but that hasn't stopped him from helping out in the past. At least he has his shock baton, which I still need to fix. You mind if we stop for a moment? Marcus and Nate exchanged looks, as if they were to say no. But then they shook their heads in agreement and relaxed for a short moment. I know they were desperate to save Holly. But I wanted to be 100% ready, and that includes fixing Onion's only weapon. I put my bag on the ground and sat down, pulling out my tools and scraps. Over here, Onion. Let me see your arm. Do me a favor and power down that area. Last time you nearly killed me.
Yes, miss.
Why does he always call you miss? Wouldn't that get old after a while? I started working on the arm as I talked. It never occurred to me like that. That's just what he does. I don't even remember programming him to say that. He just picked it up at some point. Now, when he keeps asking me if I'm okay when I'm obviously not, that does tend to irritate me. I jabbed my screwdriver into a loose wire, causing it to spark harmlessly, which in turn caused Onion to drift back a foot or two before returning silently to me. What do you mean he picked it up? Nate's face was showing both curiosity and confusion. Oh, that's just his software. Rather than give him a stock OS that I dug up in a file, I decided it would be much more of a challenge to make an evolving AI. Basically, Onion is designed to learn, although that doesn't stop him from being very stubborn at times. Ain't that right, Onion?
Miss, really,
Oops. Looks like I found your voice box. Sorry. He seems more like your child or a pet rather than a friend. Oh, I often think the same thing. Maybe I should get a leash for him.
Miss, I really do object.
Damn it, looks like he turned his voice box back on. What a shame. Wait a second. Are you telling me that you built him from the ground up with just scraps? Yep, and that was the easy part too. Getting a power source, now that's a story. Nate startled me as he quickly moved closer, standing between Onion and I as he got a close look at what I was doing. He was so close that I could feel his tail hitting me a few times. It felt kinda... So, how'd you come up with an intelligence code like that? I mean, how'd you overcome Asimov's law of robotics? I mean, a self-learning AI is bound to break at least one of them. And what kind of power source is connected to that baton? You know, if you adjust the outflow settings and create an amplification loop, you can probably increase the range of the electronic discharge by at least a foot or two. You mind if I take a look? Sure. I got up and took a few steps back as Onion started to object to a stranger rooting around in his chassis. Are you okay, Olivia? Oh yeah, I'm fine. I think. Has your brother always been like that? Marcus just smiled at me as he followed my view back to Nate and Onion. Yeah, he has. He was always tinkering with something in his free time. I think most of the time it was just to keep him distracted. You two had a rough time in the Burrow, didn't you? Yeah, we did. He had it much worse, though. It's not something we really talk about much. I hope you can understand. And just know this. He's a good kid. I wouldn't trade him for anyone else. The way he kept changing the subject and the tone of his voice, both of theirs really, when mentioning the Burrow, if it really was that bad for him, it just made my hatred of Burrow Tech all the more justified. Makes me wonder if somewhere out there are more Burrows who are being put through the same, if not worse, fates. Why did bad things always happen to good people? Hey, bro. When you're done messing around with her bot, we need to get going. Yeah, I'm almost done. There. Hey, Onion, show us some magic.
Miss?
It's okay, Onion. Onion extended his baton and activated it. It sparked on, but it didn't look any different from before. Well, turn up the juice. Nate stepped away as he said that. Whatever that fox did to Onion, it worked. A giant arc of electricity shot out at least 3 feet, striking a large metal pole and arcing again towards a sign on a nearby building. The light show not only shocked me, thankfully not literally, but it also sent Onion flying back a few feet. Onion, are you okay?
Well, miss, the increased output consumed nearly 50% of my reserves and caused quite the recoil, but my systems are still at optimal operating capacities.
Whatever you do, don't ever fire that next to me, or else I'll scrap you. Got it?
Don't worry, miss. I'd rather avoid the need for using it altogether myself.
Nate was dancing around, seemingly trying to show off that he had done it, as if he wasn't sure it would work. I really hope that wasn't the case. Otherwise he would never touch Onion again. You know, you two have a lot in common. To tell you the truth, I don't think I've ever seen him this happy. Marcus walked over to his brother. I heard him say that he needed to stop goofing around and get ready to head out. As for myself, I just stood there, my face feeling warm. Why the fuck is my face feeling warm? And my tail, it felt... Ah! I hurried over and grabbed my bag and tools. First the mayor, now this fox. Why is it that in a matter of days I've been getting these... feelings?
Miss, I'm picking up movement.
This is exactly what I needed. A distraction. Where from and how many?
3, and about 40 feet to the south.
Marcus, Nate, we got company. I pulled out my gun and faced towards the south. Directly south of us was a small road that intersected the city. Scattered cars made for perfect hiding spots for an ambush. We had stopped next to a building, but it was otherwise an open space. Since we had not seen any sign of life since leaving Hope, none of us must have thought about finding a better location to rest. I started to hear growls and groans coming from my line of sight. Oh, not these fuckers again. If you can understand me, please stay where you are. I saw the first one crawling out from under a large truck. Another one was slowly walking across the top of it. Once it reached the edge of the trailer, it took a step and fell onto the cab of the truck, before falling again to the ground. It slowly got up and started towards us, and I saw another one come from behind a van.
Miss, they're not stopping.
Yeah, I noticed that, Onion. 2 of them were large. Tigers, perhaps? While the other was very small and lanky. It was probably a weasel. I took aim, but I didn't want to shoot unless I was certain they weren't intelligent. After my interactions with Mr. Big, I realized that there were more like him. Mammals that had changed, but only physically, who maintained their intelligence. They were no different from us, and they deserved to be treated the same. I was about to shout out again when I heard a loud crack as one of the tiger's heads exploded.
Miss, 4 more just appeared on my scanner.
What are you waiting for, Olivia? Shoot! It snapped my head back into it. These were savage ghouls. But I had to try. I took aim and fired at the other large one. I missed. Oh, shit. 3 more were crawling over the cars, and I couldn't see the last one anywhere. Another loud crack sounded behind me, but he must have missed. Next, I heard a short burst of fire as the leg of the tiger buckled, but it still moved forward. The rest were starting to pick up the pace.
Miss, there are 2 more.
Oh, fuck. How many are there? The sounds of gunfire must be attracting them. Nate and Marcus appeared beside me. Marcus had a rather large-looking pistol in paw, while Nate had his rifle. They both fired, taking 2 more out. I fired again, my bullet tearing the weasel in half. I turned towards my next target, but movement caused me to return to the weasel. Its upper half was still trying to move. Oh, I fucking hate these things. Then why didn't you shoot at them when they weren't so close? I had to make sure they weren't like us. I don't want to kill an innocent. Trust me, these are not innocents. Marcus fired another round. The sound of his gun was almost deafening this close. The more civilized ghouls never travel in packs. It's too dangerous for them. But my sensors only showed 3. How was I supposed to know? Your pip-bore must still be set on short range. I'll change that for you when we get out of here. Mark, there are 5 more. That makes 14. We really should get out of here. Now.
Miss, behind us.
I checked my scanner. Movement was coming out from the alleyway behind us. Oh, fuck me. At this rate, we'll be surrounded. I looked around and noticed something. Oh, that's brilliant. I put my gun away and put my bag in front of me. Buy me some time. What? Just trust me. I moved backwards, away from the overly noisy weapons they had, and pulled out my last grenade. Oh, I hope this works. Okay, cover me. We're going through these fuckers. Are you insane? We're being surrounded, and according to my map, that's the quickest way. On my mark, run as fast as you can to me. Before either of them could respond, I darted forward, towards the larger crowd of ghouls. Sure, we could have gone the other way, but more and more dots appeared on my scanner behind us. No matter what direction we went, we'd have to fight our way through the horde of these things. And I didn't want to waste bullets when we were still so far away from rescuing Holly. I made one last calculation in my head, and I took a dive, sliding next to the first ghoul that they had killed. The truck. I had a realization. Based upon its warning signs posted on it, it was a fuel transport. While I'm certain that the fuel had been taken long ago, there should still be enough fumes in there to make a sizable explosion. When I had stopped sliding, I was directly under the truck. Then I noticed something else that would make this a show to remember. The decaying paws of a ghoul reached under the truck for me, but Marcus shot it down with his weapon. I flipped the grenade safety open, pressed the button, and dropped it, pushing myself out from underneath. I jumped up and ran to the side of the nearest building, pulling out my gun and firing up into the air towards an outcropping. My bullet hit its mark, causing a ladder to drop down. Now! I had no idea what was going through their heads, but thankfully they were not second-guessing me as they made their way up the ladder. 2 floors up there was a broken window and I dived in. A second later so did they, just as the grenade went off. I dove behind an overturned couch and looked out the window as the truck I was just underneath flew up into the air, and then came crashing down, setting off an explosion that shook the building. Nate and Marcus, who had just gotten inside before the explosion, started to get up and look at the devastation. I'd get behind me if I were you. They looked at me questionably, as a series of explosions ripped below us, causing them to dive next to me. The ground shook so much that I was afraid the building was about to collapse, but thankfully it was still standing. That part had not quite occurred to me. And this new series of explosions, that wasn't part of the plan either. Then again, I did only come up with this in a few seconds. What the hell just happened, Olivia? Marcus was staring at me, his face crossed between fear and bewilderment. Well, you see... I heard rattling noises rising up through the building, and small popping sounds occurred below us. Looking to my left, I saw the bathroom. Oh, not again. I had no time to react before the pressure of the explosion caused the toilet to explode, sending bits of porcelain and the contents of the now destroyed septic system flying everywhere. The smell was horrible. But we were alive. The foxes, however, were not too pleased. Ugh, it's everywhere. It's in my fur, it's in my clothes, it's even in my... I finished changing into some clean clothes. Thankfully, I had thought to bring my old jumpsuit. I hope Mayor Swift isn't mad that I probably ruined her gift. My jacket was filthy. Again. I tried to scrape off what I could, but it was of no use. It was getting ratty anyways. I tossed it on the ground and grabbed my bag. What exactly just happened, Olivia? Well, you see, I noticed this old fuel transport. I recognized the hazardous materials logo on it. We had them all over back in the place where I came from. I figured that someone had drained out all the fuel from the tank. There would still be enough residual fumes trapped inside to allow for an explosion, and decided to not only use it to force the ghouls back, but also distract them while we made our escape up here. That doesn't explain the filth everywhere. That was an unforeseeable side effect. You see, when I got under the fuel tank, I noticed it was parked over a sewage access. It was sealed, but there were enough cracks for me to smell methane leaking from it. There was probably decades of old crap down there, slowly building up the gas. I knew what would happen, but it was too late, so I just rolled with it. Mark, can you come here? Marcus and I both got up and went towards Nate, who was now looking out the window. Out there in the streets below was my handiwork. The pipe system that connected the sewage must have run down the entire strip of the road, because the entire street was torn asunder. Smoke, fire, and debris was everywhere. Damaged pipes were sticking out all over the place. Ghoul bodies were scattered, most of them torn to bits. A few were still moving, but they were in no condition to follow us. You see, boys, that's why I didn't want you to come with me. Wherever I go, things happen and shit explodes. And not necessarily in that order. Their faces were priceless. Jaws descended, shock on their faces. It made me smile. Whoa. You are something. Nate's shocked and bewildered expression was slowly replaced with that of awe. I felt my face get warm as he snapped his mouth shut and turned towards his brother. So, are you okay, Mark? Yeah, all good here. Could use a shower. Or two. Hey, Onion, what's your... Onion? I just realized that I didn't remember seeing Onion follow us up here. Oh no, please tell me that I didn't.
Out here, miss. I could use a little help.
I ran to the window and saw that Onion was pinned between the metal floor and the ladder leading up to the next floor. It must have gotten loose from the explosion. I jumped down and tried to lift it up. It was heavier than I thought. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Nate and Marcus come over and help me lift it. Once it was high enough, Onion rolled out from underneath and activated his levitator. Oh, I'm so sorry, Onion.
Apparently, the shock test drained my power reserves from my levitator engine, and I was not able to pick up enough speed and height to make it in time.
I turned to Nate. His smile turned into a look of worry. Oh, well, I can fix it. I swear. Just... let's go. It was probably a feedback loop or something. I forgot to mention that all the parts are heavily modified cheap components. That's usually why I don't let someone else mess with him. It's a mess in there, but it's a mess I know by heart. I can help. I shot him a look and he stopped talking. There should hopefully be another fire escape on the other side of the building. I don't want to go back down there, so we'll cut through these rooms. As long as the other side is clear, we can make our way out from there. The sun's setting soon, and I want to make it there by then. I looked at my pip ore. 39.8. We still had a way to go. I just hope that this is our last excitement until we reach our destination. I don't know if my sanity can take this much longer. And once again, I'm covered with shit. Hope better have a good shower system. Maybe I should invest in some waterproof clothing. Armored waterproof clothing. That covers my whole body. I need a fucking suit of exo-armor. That's what I need. I wonder if it's too late to take Chief Laszlo up on that offer.